Hi there, and thank you so much for the introduction, Emma. And yes, a couple of hurdles this morning in terms of connectivity. So hopefully everything is now going to go to plan. It was great listening on Dan's presentation there. And I do have some slides today, but due to the issues that I've had, just wondering if it can be shared to chat about who we are at Connect3, and ask for these to be guided. Yeah, perfect. So I am head of culture and performance at Connect3. I have been part of the organisation for coming up 8 years now, and I can honestly say that the culture is absolutely what has kept me there, as well as the incredible clients that we get to work with. Really, our business has changed. It's evolved within the 8 years that I've been part of the organisation. And rather than seeing culture change and dilute, we've absolutely used that as a leverage of our competitive edge and how that's helped us as a driver for growth. So if we just move along the slides to the next one. Yeah, I wanted to give a little bit of an indication of who we are at Connect3. So our mission, which is very, very strong in terms of what and why we do, is that we very much are on a mission to make the planet a better place to both work and live. We are a very proud B Corp organisation, and that was one of our cultural milestones 4 years ago, where we've always been a values-led organisation, and that very much has came from our founder and MD, Colin, who has always had and led with strong values. But gaining our B Corp accreditation in or 4 years ago, really gave us that organisational clarity around about what we stood for, what was our principles, and how does that guide and help us make decisions. So very much for those that don't know, B Corp is about putting people and the planet at the centre of everything that you do and using your profits for business for good. And we really use that as a way to help guide how we act and behave within Connect3 and how we really partner organisations that we're proud to work with. So in essence, we really are a people and a business consultancy that partner other organisations on their cultures, their growth, and helping them be better businesses and helping them change the way that they run their businesses for good. So really, culture is massively important to us. As head of culture and performance at Connect3, I wear two hats. So one, really support our internal culture alongside the rest of the team and also support other organisations on their cultural journeys. So it's really good to be able to use our story today and some of the things that we have done as an organisation, like I said, to keep our culture intact as we have grown. So if we hop along to the next slide. And just a bit about our experience of who we work with, and more than that, around about what helps govern our organisation, really fuel some of our best practice, which again that we see as cultural indicators of how much we invest in our people, how much we invest in their well-being and their development opportunities to make sure that we are living and breathing a really authentic culture. So we go on to the next slide. Perfect. So I wanted really to show our growth story a little bit and bring that to life and talk about some of our cultural milestones and our cultural learnings, like I said, as we've grown as an organisation. So if we hop onto the next slide, there's just some statistics there. So we've been an organisation since 2016. We had our 10th birthday party last year, which we held a great learning festival where we invited our clients, our partners, to really showcase who we are in our journey and where we've came from and also where we're going to. And some really proud stats that we've had in and around about that we've had an experience growth, so our average revenue growth of 20% year on year. And I'll talk a little bit further on and how we had our real stretch year a couple of years ago where we went after our most ambitious growth targets yet. And every single year the team have really came along with us. We don't just look at our growth in financial terms though, we really look at it in other numbers as well. And something that really proud of is the growth in our team members. We started off as one, and that was Colin. Starting off in 2015 probably, he went away and started to really have that opportunity to say, me and Colin actually worked internally together at an organisation in learning and development roles. And Colin always had this really strong vision of, he's got an opportunity to provide products, services, partnerships would really make a difference within organisations. So he set out on that journey. I kept in contact with him and was delighted when the position came up to join Connect 3 as a full-time member of the team, which again was a milestone of how much the organisation had grown, that Colin started to have the opportunity to grow the team and really require different roles. That has just been strengthened and strengthened in terms of now how we operate. Is we've got our employed team that is made up of support functions, experts, consultants, and even towards 2 years ago where we had to restructure our organisation and create heads of departments to make sure that that was sustaining our growth. We now work with over 39 people annually. That is always increasing, that are based all across different geographical locations across the UK, bringing a wide range of expertise and diverse experience. And the number of clients we've worked with over the years is 475, and again that continues to grow. But we've partnered with clients for years, which actually the projects that we've been part of could be a triple figure. So just some indications of how we've grown as an organisation, but then really connecting that back to the culture if we look at the next slide. So I wanted to really bring this to life through imagery. So the picture of Colin in the middle there, where he started the organisation at a hot desk where it was just him. And then we moved to a smaller office space. And then towards then the right-hand side is where we are now and what we call home at Connect 3, where we have our physical office space, some training rooms, but we operate all across the UK, both in person and supporting clients digitally and remotely as well. But the office was another key milestone for us. This marked a space of creation that we looked at our culture and we needed our physical environment to help us strengthen our culture. So we started to create spaces where people could come together to innovate more, collaborate together. We've got huge whiteboards where we have our sparring sessions, where we do our product designs and our sprints. We wanted to make sure that we had space for people to come in and visit us and welcome our clients there. We've got our artwork and we've started to add our learning library, which is small but really powerful reminders of our culture and our values, of how much we like to learn and fuel our curiosity. And it was also then a mark of how professional and how mature that we were coming as an organisation as well. And if we go to the next slide, we also went on a bit of a journey of our brand. This was our original brand at Connect 3, where we really had to tell people what were the three solutions that we stood for. Well, it was learning, it was development, and it was consultancy, and that's how we could support organisations. But if we go on to the next slide, it shows the evolution of our brand, where we wanted to make sure that we were creating a brand that really reflected our personality, our boldness, our brightness, and helping us really stand out. Like I said, this was then a real milestone of how our identity helped fuel our feelings of connection to Connect 3, and it sparked elements of our own personality and how we were presenting ourselves externally to our clients and partners. And if we move on, again, this is where we are today. And again, just a lot of what the elements that we're proud of how we connect to people. We're really proud to show our team and lots of imagery and photographs and part of our branding. But also this slide shows an evolution of our values and how we really use this as a demonstration of our culture. We introduced our fourth value. So for 4 years, we've had 3 values at Connect 3. And this was a mark where we started to broaden the team. We started to look for more diversity within our team. And that meant then that we had to provide some consistency around about what it is that we valued as an organisation, but more importantly, some indications of how we should behave, what sort of the behaviours would be helpful within our roles of how we work together, how we support each other, but also how we support our clients. Also what's not okay and what's not acceptable, so that people knew what it was like to actually be part of Connect 3. So our values very much form part of our day-to-day culture, where we are bold, we're brave, we take risks, we make decisions, we work at pace. Our curiosity is what fuels our learning. We ask questions of each other, we listen, and we know that our curiosity drives our innovation. Be limitless. This was the one that we introduced 2 years ago, where we went after our most ambitious growth year. And we wanted a value that was demonstrative of our drive, our ambition. And for us, that meant that we had to have a conversation with all of our team to then go, what does this value actually mean to us? For me, I loved it. For me, I thought, right, it's that growth mindset, that ambition, let's go get this. But actually, from others in the team, they rebelled against that as a value. They thought that it meant burnout, that working too hard. But actually, we engaged in conversations with the team to actually make sure that they really knew and understood what this value meant in practice. And our PU represent our authenticity. We want our team to feel as if that they can be themselves, and that might be from how they physically dress themselves and how they feel confident, but it's about what they bring, their thoughts, their experience, and that ability to speak up, to share, to challenge each other. And all in that means that when people work with us and when people join Connect 3, they're joining a culture that's part of a journey, one that is bold, one that is curious, one that's limitless, but also one that enables people to feel as if that they can be themselves and that we really care about helping them belong when they join Connect 3. So if we move on, that said, there's all and lots of great moments that I'm really proud of at Connect 3. The growth that we've had has brought us incredible opportunities in terms of the clients that we work with, where we work, how we work, but it also brought strain. And we really needed to make sure that we were checking in on that. That's where we really started to understand that, our culture is absolutely everything to us at Connect 3, and we have to be continuously spotting it, looking out for any of the small changes, checking in on individuals that aren't really playing to our culture. And there has been a couple of moments and times where actually there was some cracks that started to show. And that's where Colin, for such a long time, because he was very, very passionate about people being able to be part of a culture at Connect 3 and that culture being maintained, was able to really spot that. So it's just really that lesson of culture shouldn't be an afterthought. We have to continuously be able to spot what's going on. So when then these little cracks started to appear, it was around about how people communicated or lack of communication. So people that usually would share ideas on the Slack channel that we use would be, really active, all of a sudden moving away. So therefore then we started to ask the team what was going on. So if we go to the next slide, so rather than shy away from spotting these situations, we captured a moment in time and we leaned into it. We were brave and we wanted to demonstrate that we cared about the experience that people were having. Up until that point, we didn't really have any formal engagement surveys or check-in points. And again, at that moment, that was an indication to us to say we need to start to formalise things and put some processes in place that we're continuously checking in our culture, because it can't and it shouldn't rely on one person or a few people to be able to spot that. So we engaged in conversations with them, with our team. We asked for real brutal honesty, for lots of candid conversations. And we said, right, what is bad about where we are right now? We have noticed a few things, but what are you experiencing? And yes, the team were really honest with us and they really cared to give us their answers. And really what we found was that growth created the busyness. And yes, that was a good thing, but it also meant that people were disconnected and we were losing a lot of time together that usually people really enjoyed. Rapid change was bringing lots of reaction rather than strategic actions and ongoing focus to longer term planning that was causing us to be busy and actually create quite a lot of stressful indicators and burnout. Where people had been really passionate about our efforts on sustainability and our efforts on inclusion and belonging, we found there wasn't as much focus on these. These were the nice to have that were starting to lose the way. But like I said, some of the reasons why people joined Connect 3, but we needed to make sure that we were getting these back on track. And we recognised, and people said that there was a need for simple processes to help us maintain these relationships, particularly during busy periods. And then ambiguity around about roles and responsibilities, again, during busy times. We were introducing new members to the team. People didn't know quite, well, what's their level of responsibility? What does that mean for my levels of responsibility, particularly if I was getting involved in all of these things in the past? All of a sudden, this person's coming in. And all of that meant that there was lots of ambiguity, lack of clarity. So people almost took a step back and stopped performing, and again fueled that disconnection. So what did we do then? So again, rather than ignore it and lean into it, so if we go on to the next slide, what we did was start to then use a tool called the competing values framework to then start to then think about, well, how do we start to articulate what's going on with our culture? We wanted to make sure that we started to use a bit of a diagnostic tool to help us explain what was going on to different people across the organisation. And it was never about labelling some of these, the gaps in our culture. It was never about labelling it as bad. It was understanding our culture as a living system that needed a bit of rebalancing. And this, using the competing values framework, help us reflect, it help us realign and actually make more conscious choices about what we needed to happen within our culture. For those, again, that don't know or not aware, it's a really great framework that means that you can then start to ask your leaders of your organisation and the rest of the team, what is it that you like about our culture currently? What is it that doesn't work, or what are some of the gaps? And then we use that as a bit of a moment in time versus, well, where do we want to be as we grow? So this for us was such an insightful tool at Connect3, and one very much that I use with other organisations that helps them journey and start to use their culture in moments to say, actually, is my culture right where I need to go, or the direction that I'm heading in? And that allowed us to make small changes and tweaks to ensure our culture was getting back on track. Some of what our team told us was very much our culture was built on clan. Like I said before, people really valued the relationships, they valued the time that we spent together. And therefore, we didn't want to lose it or take that away from people, because that was an anchor that was really, really important. But what we found was, as we were growing, that all that time together that we were spending in meetings actually were creating a bit of bottlenecks, and we couldn't have everyone involved in absolutely everything. So then we started to create little sub-teams. So those that were involved in sustainability, we started to create sub-teams that were involved in our equity, diversity, inclusion plan, sub-teams that were created for our innovation and growth. And very much that's when we started to create the heads of to distinguish our 3 key business areas. We also then, in the blue quadrant, was around about our systems and processes. We knew that then there was a need to make sure that we were putting more robust policies in place, more robust project management checks, and the way that we run projects to have more consistency. Again, as we grew, and the people getting lots of training and development quicker to help accelerate the impact they were having within their roles. So a great way to journey kind of where your culture is right now, but is it right and the way you needed it to be? Moving on then to some of our lessons, if we skip to the next slide. So all of this, and I could talk more about all of the moments that we had as part of our culture, but really summarising this of what changes when you grow, it's that knowing that change is absolutely fine in terms of your culture, but not if it's going to be at a disadvantage. So being really aware of what are your culture anchors, what are the things that you want to hold dear because they are part of your organisation's DNA. It's why people join you, it's why people want to work with you, but also be willing to what needs to shift and change to support that growth like we did.
I think what's really interesting, Katy, is hearing about. I love the fact that you've intentionally focused on culture right from the offset, because I think a lot of organisations I've worked with, I quite often get brought in when companies get to about kind of 100, 150 people, and they go, oh, we should maybe do something about this culture thing because suddenly it's not working anymore. But you obviously, I mean, you'd expect you to kind of get it right from the beginning, but I love the fact you focus on it from the off. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, the times that's what I say to organisations, especially if they're just starting up, it's to have a gauge of, right, what is the culture that you want to create? What is actually going to provide you that opportunity to grow? So even if it's one or two people, that's still a culture, and it's that culture by design, so that actually we're really intentional about what's important to us. And again, that growth helps you make sure that you're hiring people and bringing, that great cultural fit, but also that cultural add that's going to help you grow in line with your business objectives, rather than getting down the line and going, this feels a bit funny now. What's happened? What's went wrong? It's that more intention.
Yeah,
More
definitely.
intentional.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We often talk about intentional design in the work that we do, and you're right. You have a culture. Every company has a culture, but you have a choice as to kind of intentionally design that culture and think about what's the culture we want to create, rather than the culture just kind of happens to you. So I'm not sure how we just got to kind of lessons learned piece, which I think I don't know how much more you had to share with us. We're pretty much at time anyways. Any kind of like final points that you'd like to share with us before we kind of finish up the session?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with the lessons learned piece, it's again just having that reflection and monitoring and using really key points of your data to be able to then make sure that actually, again, we're checking in and making sure that your values, your behaviours, even if we move across the next slide, to think around about, in fact, sorry, the last slide, because I can just summarize it really nicely there. Because actually through this, what other people can do is around about what data you gather, and moving away from just your traditional engagement surveys. It might tell you how people feel, but that's so dependent of a moment in time, dependent on project that they're working on or how they feel. But if we're monitoring culture more holistically, actually it helps you get to the root cause of how people feel and how they're connecting and the why behind the culture, and then using that data to be able to track what's actually happening and put solutions in place. I think the key point for us and one of our, again, milestones was really strengthening our reboarding and our onboarding to make sure that people can experience your culture from the start. So we've done a lot of work at Connect 3 to making sure that people feel welcomed, but also we're helping accelerate them into our culture. So, our values and a bit of a video of what it's actually like to work at Connect 3. But we spend a lot of time with new people and making sure they get a flavour of what it's like to work. But sometimes we leave current employees behind. So making sure that we're always continually to refresh longer term employees as well. And just making sure that we're always checking in and giving employees that voice, that opportunity to participate. And again, just the last point on the next slide, and then that will be me, is in around about growth and right strength, things belonging. And there's lots of organisations that say, oh, people just, don't really care anymore. The more that we scale, the more we grow. But actually, people still want to feel connected to something, to be part of an organisation. Scaling doesn't have to lose meaning that. So making sure that your vision and that purpose is really strong so that people can connect to that, and making sure that people are really authentically demonstrating the values, means that still creates that meaning, that purpose for people, no matter how big your organisation is, and localising that within the department so that actually people have that connection that feels that belonging, no matter what your size. And that would be the takeaways and what others can take away from doing your culture by design and enabling you to grow while still keeping the anchors in place. Thank you. And sorry about the drop it.
That's all right. Thank you, Katy. Thanks for sticking with it. It's always, we talk a lot about the tech, don't we? And yet we're still sort of like, battling against Wi-Fi signals going in and out. So we've all been there. No one judges. We've all been there. But thank you so much for sharing your story. It was really interesting. And I love that, my key takeaway from what you said there was that whole culture by design piece. So thank you for that. So